Hello and welcome back to Dry Conversations. I'm your host, Whitney Cowell. Joining me today is my friend Grace Sharkey. Hey, Grace.
Hey, Whitney, happy to be here and just so proud of this whole podcast that you started. It's a new quote unquote conversation, I think, that we don't see much in our space. So happy to see it taking off. And you've had some really cool guests so far. So that's
Oh,
great.
thank you. And thank
Yeah.
you for being a part of it because I know you have a really strong voice that you use on a lot of platforms. And so I'm really thankful that you're using yours on my platform as well. I'm excited to see the blend of the conversations.
Yeah, this should be a fun combo because I think we're going to get into things that, people don't normally hear. We're not talking tariffs today, like we're not talking freight tech. So it'll be probably a new conversation for people that know me too.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. But for anybody that doesn't know you, I would love for you to just give a quick overview of what you've been up to recently.
Yeah, so I recently just left FreightWaves. So for the past about 4 years now, I was working at FreightWaves as a writer, podcaster, SiriusXM host, and doing all the fun things there. And it's fun because I wanted to get back into the corporate world. Not to say that it wasn't FreightWaves, but out of journalism back into operations. And so I'm really excited to say that I'm here at Orderful. We're an EDI company, of course, trying to make trade easier for everyone out there. And I'm really excited about the team that I joined. And Eric, who's the founder and CEO of the company, has been an absolute wonderful friend and, of course, leader throughout this transition for me as well. So, yeah, I'm very excited to get into like the weeds of the freight tech space that I've written about for so long.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. And something that I noticed the last time I saw you in person, I think I said this to your face, was you have like this sparkle about you that I feel like I haven't seen in a while. And that kind of prompted the conversation of you coming on the show and sharing a little bit about your story. So we're going to be talking about mental health today. And like you said, this is just a different side of Grace that maybe the world hasn't fully seen yet.
Definitely. I mean, it's the last probably decade of my life has been filled with some crazy roller coaster ride moments, and on top of that, I just think this industry is a very stressful industry when
Mhm.
it comes to customer service and all the details that go into that service here. Mental health is something that I'm passionate about, not just personally for my lifestyle and the friends around me, but I just think for this industry as a whole, like the best that people can do to invest in the mental health of their employees, I think is
Yeah.
going to be very helpful over time.
So what does that journey look like for you? Because obviously people dive into that topic typically out of a personal experience.
Yes. Yeah, it's always been a part of my life. So, to get and we're going to just do our best today, so I'm a
Would not be
twin.
the first person to cry if it happened.
Right? Yeah.
I have, other people have.
All right, I'm not even had my coffee yet, but here we go. So I'm a twin, and mental health has always been a part of my life because my twin sister, just growing up, has dealt with depression herself. And I will say it's interesting talking to people about this sometimes, because I think, not to say that I don't have my own mental stuff that I'm working through, but I think sometimes people assume when you're twins you're like exactly alike in all ways. And I was fortunate to not have to deal with the that depression like my sister has growing up, but I've got to grow up alongside her and see her through that journey. My mom also deals with high anxiety as well, and that's also been a journey for me to kind of watch her deal with that diagnosis as an older adult.
Yeah.
Right, I think their generation, like, and probably still kind of talking that out, has kind of push mental health aside as something that
Right.
maybe everyone should be considering. So I've always seen it in my family in some type of ways, and through other relatives in my family as well. We've had a couple of unfortunate suicide situations in the past, and so it's just something that I've kind of grown up around and seen the maybe aftermath of as well.
Yeah.
And so I've always been passionate about trying to find your own personal journey to addressing your mental health. I think sometimes now in society, everyone kind of wants to diagnose everyone with like the
Yeah.
same, here's other steps you should take. Try yoga, do this, do this. And not to say that those things aren't good, but I think everyone has to find their own path and their own regulation of their body, right? Like my sister dealt with more of a hormonal imbalance depression situation. So it was less of like the trauma maybe that she's experienced affecting her mental health and more of something that was very difficult for her to control and dealt. It also included a number of, change ups in medication throughout her life to deal with that as your body kind of regulates through that.
Yeah. And
Um,
that is a very hard thing to live through, is trying to find that right combination, because
Totally.
I've been through that too. And it is frustrating and it is confusing and it can be really emotionally painful to like have to have that patience to see what's going to work, and then it
Yeah,
doesn't, and then you have to start over. So like I get like, and to watch a loved one go through that, we know people are resilient, but we also see the fragile side of them, and that
yes.
is, it is hard and uncomfortable to be a part of that, because you can't change it for them.
Definitely. And as someone who's like, I'm like an operations girl, I love to like see a problem and fix it. So
Right.
like for me to like grow up around that and be like, how can I help you? But like, no, there's besides being supportive, there's not really much I can physically do to help you is really tough. Um, but it's also the importance I think of, and this is something I think people have heard me talk about before, is like the empathy of the whole conversation, right? Being able to say like, you know what, I can't put myself in your shoes. I think we can all work on that in different types of ways in our lives. And because I can't do that, let me take a step back and try to just acknowledge your feelings and move forward through that, right? And I even think sometimes people say like, well, let me put myself in your shoes. And it's like that's also impossible.
Yeah.
It,
Well, one of the
yeah,
things that I've learned um, along the way is like asking questions, because as an addict, some people are like, "Oh yeah,
right.
I'm like addicted to my phone." I'm like, "It's different." And
Totally, yeah.
but I also don't mind people asking uncomfortable questions. And
Yeah,
I think because I've experienced things that might make people uncomfortable, when I meet somebody else that's journeyed down something that I don't fully understand, there is this openness where like I don't feel as uncomfortable just being like, what's that like? You know what I mean? Because
totally.
we would, from my experience, I would rather answer their questions to clarify and to help with education than for
Totally.
people to make assumptions.
And oh, I mean, I'm the host of this podcast now. Let me ask you a question on that note. Do you feel like doing that made you feel like the other party is more receptive?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It it when people are more willing to ask questions, it it kind of helps me put this like shame of what do they think about me. It lowers that
totally.
wall significantly. And some of that is because they care enough to ask. And that
Yep.
doesn't mean if people don't ask that they don't care. But
Yeah,
when they do ask, they are willing to try to empathize and to understand and to gain at least another lens on the situation.
definitely. I totally agree with you. And I think asking people those questions, like you said, makes you feel more seen, right? And understood in a way that nothing could replace. And so I'm happy that you brought that up because I feel like I've learned that too. And even through my own kind of grief and mental health, right, over the past year. So yeah, like about a year ago, my sister did pass away. And I will say it was nothing that was related to her depression. So I'm grateful, I guess, for
Yeah.
that. Um, but you know, I will say, like, even through that, people asking me questions about it, and even now, I think that actually helps me too. Like, I actually enjoy talking about her even though I'm not convincing anyone right now, but I do enjoy talking about her more than I have over the past year right now. And I think talking about her and talking about the experience helps me too as well. So I think checking in on people and doing more of, and, intentional phone calls. And I think we get so used to like text messages, like, hey, how are you? Stuff like that, compared to like picking up the phone or even just saying, listen, we're doing lunch. I don't care what you say. Like, let's get lunch on the calendar and figure it out. Really does help those people. So I will, for anyone out there who sees people going through mental issues or just hard times, like, really try to physically be there with the person,
Yeah.
because I think having those discussions and physically being in front of someone helps someone guide them through those talks, right?
Yeah. And so how has this journey leading up to the passing of your sister,
Yeah,
how has that shaped you, I guess, as an individual? Because you're watching other people struggle with their mental health,
yeah,
but that does put you in a place to be very vulnerable to struggle with your own mental health.
totally. And I'll be honest, like at first I was like, no therapist, like I can handle this myself. That's what they call the denial stage of grief. um, and that lasted for me probably a good couple of months, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. Just like throughout the logistics of someone passing, that's kind of a crazy thing to say. But going through the process of funeral planning and just having relatives in town and almost helping those around you grieve, I think I got lost in that for a while. And then it did get to a point probably a couple months after mid fall into fourth quarter, if we're going to talk that way, where I was like, you know what, this is, I think, starting to just affect the way that I'm looking at life and the work I'm doing. And um, I had to start talking to someone. I had to go start seeing a therapist and talking. Um, and it took me probably good, honestly, probably even close to 6 months for me to finally pull the trigger on that. Um, and realize like that third party is someone that can be very useful.
Yeah.
I think especially when you lose someone so close to you, or especially someone that you would just have those talks with, right? It's like replacing that person. And
Yeah.
so that was a real struggle for me to just like get out of denial, just finally be like, go do this. And and also that meant changing maybe some of the people that uh, were supporting me through that. Maybe not changing, but adding to those
Yeah.
people. So like I found a group of there's a Facebook group for twins who have lost a twin. So like getting in there and talking with some of those individuals. And ironically, I've got a handful of friends that are twins. I actually even have a group of triplets in that handful of people, and like kind of reaching out to them more and just um, uh, talking it through and being open to be like, I'm not good right now, and
Yeah.
I need help. And uh, that was, kind of an experience for me to open myself up, meet new people, and walk through that. So
There's a lot of power in seeing others and in being seen by others. And if you can
totally,
do that reciprocity with the same person, that's incredibly, I mean, there's trauma bonding, don't get me wrong. Like
totally,
we're,
yeah,
we're
we've all.
very capable of that too. But that being on a journey together towards healing, and finding that community, it goes beyond support, and then they become like community.
Totally,
And I think that there's really there's we just weren't meant to do these things alone. And I
no,
think you and I, in very different ways, have experienced trying to do things on our own that we're meant to do in community, and feeling just how painful and lonely it can really be. And
Yeah,
inviting somebody into that space is actually, for me anyways, it was really uncomfortable.
totally.
I
And
mean, it was worth it,
especially, well,
but
and especially I think in this industry, right? Like, it was pretty obvious that I wasn't writing, so it was like pretty obvious pretty quickly to a lot of people that like I was missing. And I will say, huge shout out to Freight Waves and honestly Craig Fuller. When this happened, they were just like, "Don't come back whenever." Like,
yeah.
when I was coming back to work was like not even a question. So like, first off, companies out there watching this, like, just consider how you do walk around these situations, because that made me very thankful for my team at the
Yeah.
time. Um, so there's that too. Um, but I think uh, it does take time, and that's that uncomfortableness of like telling people, even professionally, like kind of what you're going through. And but at the same time, there was just so much love that came out of that experience, right? Of people being like, "Hey, like you haven't been on the radio. Hey, like what's going on?" And and honestly, a lot of that too, like, was outreach just because they hadn't seen me. It wasn't like I need something from you, or like we've got some news coming out. It was like, "Hey, you're usually posting, usually." And so I will say that it was really great for me to kind of sit back and see people in the logistics community that I didn't know what level of support they really had for me, the work that I do. And so that was just incredible to kind of look back. And I mean, even some of the people and groups that sent flowers and things to my family was just like outstanding, and just really great to see. So it's you can find community, I think, in places that you don't even expect it at some level. And at the same time, like, I also am the type of person that truly believes what you put out there will come back to you. And I think I've always tried to lead that way, like empathetic. And most people in this industry I know, it's like I know them, and I also know like what they eat for breakfast every day. Like, I try to know people as humans and not just like their contribution to this industry. And so I think what was really helpful and positive for me to take from that was like, oh, that this is the outcome that I've also kind of created, pushing that empathy out there.
That it seems like you were experiencing um, people seeing you as a person and not as the product of your work.
Totally.
And we can say that we know people feel that way about us, but experiencing it, I think, is totally different. And I do think that um, the investment of relationships goes both ways, and you're very good at investing in the people that you care about and the people
Yeah.
around you. And so, I'm thankful that your community stepped up. I am thankful that you got to experience that, because it really can be a game changer, especially re-entering the workforce. And so
Yeah.
I would love to know what that was like, coming back to work and trying to navigate this. I don't want to say new normal, because there's nothing normal
Yeah.
about that, but like
Yeah.
this new reality that you're living in.
Yeah. What a fun time for me. Going through a once in a lifetime trauma, and then I'm like, what if I switched careers again? Like, and honestly, I think a lot of that came from I've I'm a very loyal person. If you look at my LinkedIn, my resume, like, you will rarely see a job that I was there for a year. And if it was, it's probably like an internship experience or something that I couldn't control the length of time I was there.
Right.
And so the negative side to that, though, is that when opportunities have come to me in the past, I've often put myself second to that. And I think just this experience in general, uh, really taught me that one, I have the community around me that supports me no matter what, right? So that's huge. Two, life can change at any moment. So if you're not happy, why not push life the same direction back and you change at any moment, you
Yeah.
know? And three, like, take the risk. My sister was the queen at taking the risk. Like, she she went to school in the middle of the Caribbean. She would change jobs if she felt like she was better suited somewhere else. She was just all these things. I would be like, stability, my girl. You know, like, let's breathe a little bit. You know, she was just like, nope, this is where God's taking me, and I'm going to follow that path. And I've just always been like, you could put a warning sign in front of my face, and I'd be like, well, there's still like a couple feet till I get to the warning sign here. So it's like, I had to like kind of take in, right, again, the community around me, the opportunity to change the situation I was in and say, listen, I want to do this. I know I can do this. I need to just take this kind of risk. Risk is, and it's even crazy to call it a risk, right? Because
Well,
I
if
think
it
that
feels risky, then it's not crazy. Everybody's definition of that is different.
true. That's true. Well, and I think at the same time too, it's like the the risk in this conversation is almost more of like, do I feel confident in my capabilities, right? It's not
Yeah.
a risk if I know I can do the job.
Right.
So getting over that hump, working with my community that I've built, and like, what should I do
Mhm.
next? What would I be good at? How could I help, a company be better? Helps me kind of look at a few opportunities that were in front of me that were presented to me. And I will say a big part of, why I did choose to go to Orderful is because personally, Eric was a great person to lean on throughout this, last year. He's actually a twin.
Mhm.
Um, Fun fact, Eric is actually in Twins, the movie, too. If you've ever seen that movie, he's one of the little babies at the end. So
Wild.
yeah, so he's like a real twin. But he did help me kind of through that. And so when I was looking at new places, he was of course in that discussion too, and continued to follow up and still does that even as, my CEO now. And um so again, I think I actually got more into the faith side of me, the religious side of me, of just like, who is God presenting to you right now that's telling you this is the right path to take, and let's take that path. I
Yeah.
think I've talked to this on a few things, but like, I think sometimes I hate to make this religious, but just personally for me, I think sometimes people talk to God instead of listening to him sometimes. And that was one of the moments where I was like, you know what? Let me listen to everyone around me. Pocahontas, the spirit of the wind, and follow that path. And so I think like in those times of like mental health and concern, and just like your body's kind of going through this anxiety stage, just like, what's your gut telling you is right? And one foot in front of the other, just take one step and take the interview, right? See how it
Yeah.
goes, and then just follow it that way.
Yeah. And I think there can be times when we're wrestling with our own stability, our own mental
Totally.
health, where we
Totally.
start questioning our ability to make decisions. At least I experienced that. I have been praying over this word, and fearless came up, which is, you ask God to show you what it is to be fearless, you'll be given some situations. And
Totally.
and that I was confronted with the move to work also at Freightways, and I was in Nashville, and they wanted me to move within like a couple of weeks
Yeah.
to Chattanooga. And um, I hadn't told my family that I was sober yet, and it had been 10 months of sobriety,
Wow.
and I hadn't had that conversation. And it was crazy because I felt like I needed to do it, and I told my parents that I was sober, and the next business day, I got the job. And I was like, that was like trusting like that this instinct that I have to take this step is going to come with some sort of blessing reward. And I don't know what it is, but I'm going to do it anyways, because I believe that goodness is going to come regardless of what that looks like. And
Yep.
And I think that you like trusting your gut and saying, I'm going to take this leap with these people that have shown up for me. And I'm going to choose to believe that good things are going to come from that. And, you know,
Totally.
like I said, the last time I saw you, you have some sparkle back.
Yeah. And I was, I'm good friends with Don Everhart over at Transflow now. And I was just talking to him the other day too. It's like, I've also found that in my career, after 5 or so years, like I want to get into something new and I want to, help a team. And I'm like back in that, like startup kind of mentality where it's, let's try things, let's throw things against the wall, let's get creative, let's, experiment with new things the company hasn't done before. Let's build a podcast, let's do these things. And especially with a team that's like, so I was just talking to, actually Don again yesterday. And I was saying that, it's like everyone on this team, like kind of owns what they do and is willing to like help out everyone though at the same time. And it's really fun. And on top of that, it's like we're really trying to fix something that's very technical and hard to fix, and we're having fun doing that. And that's really hard to build in kind of like a remote setting as well. The whole company is remote, so like to see that that's happening, I'm like, okay, this is really fun. And I think that's part of the mental health journey too, is like what brings you joy.
Yeah.
And I think I've come to the realization over the last like couple years in particular, because like especially when I was leaving, like a lot of people are like, well, why did you start your own marketing thing? Why didn't you, get into just like doing your own stuff? Like I have learned a few things that bring me joy. One, it's working with a team. Like I I've been team captains in the past. I've been part of a number of sports teams. Like um and even the single sports like swimming, I like the relays better. Golf, I'd rather do a scramble than play
Team
alone.
kind
Like
of
yeah, I love like being with a team and accomplishing something. But what brings me like true joy is like helping others succeed in like the endeavors that they've kind of started. Like,
yeah.
and mark my words, like maybe this will change, but I don't think I'm ever gonna like come up with an idea. I'm never gonna be like a founder, There's never gonna be like where I'm like, what if, But like, boy, do I love helping those people achieve their goals. And I think like I've really found that that's what brings me joy, and anything I can do to help others, like, you know, even if it's podcast advice or like just small things, like I'm gonna do that. And I need to follow my gut in that instinct and realize, even outside of work, I need to follow that joy too. Like that's the one thing my therapist is like really helped me with, is like giving back is my kind of, I guess, love language, right? Or um so like this past uh couple of months, I started coaching, assistant coaching a t-ball team. I love kids. I think kids are like hilarious. I would have one if I wasn't doing it alone, I guess, at this point. But I just, these small things, helping more at the give out food at the homeless shelter, and just giving back to the community is like actually I think helped me more through the grieving process,
It does.
because it sparks my joy.
Yeah. And I applaud you for leaning into that. And I can totally relate to that in healing. Because I would on Fridays at Fruitways, because it was COVID and we were at home. I
Yeah.
would knock off like an hour early and do these like brown paper bag lunches. And I would just go like walk around downtown, like under the bridge and stuff, and just hand them out.
So cool.
And that was just, and I had like a huge like tote bag, and I'll just hand my, and I just did that on my own, and I didn't tell anybody that I was doing it. It was just one of those, like, it brought peace to know that even in some of my most broken feelings and my most like feeling uprooted in my life,
Yep.
I can still be of service, and I can still find like goodness in the world. And
Totally.
like you said, even if I can't look out and see it, I know that I can step in and be that. That is something that I have control over. And for me, in grief and in hard times, knowing what I have control over and trusting myself to exercise that well, it was invaluable.
Yeah. I think that's something everyone kind of needs to discover. And it's like, what is that love language, and how can you give that out? How can you experience that more to
Yeah.
actually bring you true joy? Because I've kind of, been in these situations where it's like, and you see this in this industry, you can make a lot of money, and that money can like lead you down a really awful path. And you've had guests on this show who kind of have talked about that and have experienced that, right? Especially when it comes to maybe where you're putting the extra income. Um, and so I think even through these experiences, it's like that's not true joy. That's not true
Yeah.
happiness. That can help. We all like a nice vacation here or there. But you're right. It's the simple things of just like showing up, giving back, giving service in some way that I think we need to do more as just as a society. And even more so, less like you never have probably, I don't think so. I've never really, maybe T-ball because the kids are fun, but I don't post about those situations. I don't do them to share them.
No.
I do them because when I come home, I'm going to be happy and proud of what I did.
Yeah. And I love those moments, because that's what I was taught early on, is like, it's the secret service. Everybody should
Yeah.
work in you do the service work,
Yeah.
you do it quietly, like the most recent and impactful thing that I did was a couple of months at the teen rehab center here locally. And like, they're kids, they're just kids, and they've been through really hard things,
Yeah.
and they feel really alone, and some of them are ready to change, and they simply don't know how, because they believe so many lies about them. It's just, and it was
Totally.
really powerful to sit with them in that space and just let them be and not judge them for it. That was because I also love kids. My second job was coaching for many, many years.
Nice.
And I did gymnastics and cheerleading. And so, I
That's
love
awesome.
kids. I love them of all ages. There's a certain age range that really scares me, when they like have opinions for the first time. Like
Oh, yeah, totally.
that age range is like, they're a little intimidating to me.
Yeah.
But, you know, I do think that a really important thing that I would like to summarize from what you said, for anybody that is in grief right now, is that both and you can be in your sorrow and in your grief, and you are still allowed to feel joy at the same time.
Definitely.
You are allowed to do both of those things and not feel guilty about it.
Well, and I think even more so, it's, I've lost a lot of people in my family, more of like from, probably old age type of stuff. My dad's side's much older than my mom's side. And I think you also learn from losing someone so close to you, though, is that that's not going away. So you have to accept that you have to like find joy, because
Yeah.
then you're just going to be sad all day long. And that person probably wouldn't want that happening, and it's not good for you or the community that you service as well. And so it's part of it's understanding that that feeling's never going to go, and that's how can you turn that into joy.
Yeah.
And I think giving back, right, is probably the easiest way.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm proud of you for sharing this. Thank you for being so vulnerable.
Yeah, no, of course. It's, like I said, it's I hope, and I talk about this so often. I just hope that people like take it as, maybe they look at it and say, "Oh, I had no idea she was going through that." Like, realize there's probably people in your own companies going through the
Yeah.
same thing. So when people are having a bad day, like lead with empathy always, if um and and on the other side of that, if you are going through something, like don't put it out on a carrier who got delivered late, uh realize, lead with empathy yourself, and understand, that people can go through these things and they might not always talk about them or be vocal about them, but they still need the support.
Yeah.
And so I just think that a lot of times, again, this industry gets so stressful. You add on to the everyday life situations that people are going through. And I think a lot of people, honestly, just with the demographic and the type of sales that we have, especially more maybe the brokerage side of things, especially when you talk about like your sobriety, like I think that's huge for this industry. I've led a brokerage, I've seen it happen. Kids make a lot of money and they put that money towards beer every night, to be honest with you, and it never works out well, and it doesn't work well in the office, and it usually affects your career. And so I love that you're having these discussions, and making me, hopefully there's one person at a brokerage right now that watches this and says, you know what, like it's, well, we're recording on a Friday, but it's Friday. Maybe I'll do something a little bit different tonight than I usually do.
Yeah. And that's the hope, right? Is like that there's no shame in whatever feelings you're bringing to the table when you're hearing these episodes. Is
Yeah.
like you're not the only one that's experiencing these feelings, I promise you, because somebody on this show has had that feeling too. And also, you don't have to be alone in how you deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's to me like the beauty of social media, and having like, my whole goal is just to hand the microphone over to somebody else, because I can say it till I'm blue in the face, but people like seeing other people and hearing other stories they relate to. And I don't have your story, and I'm not going to pretend to have your story.
Yeah.
But your story is really important, and it needs to be shared, because somebody else out there probably has a heavy heart and needs to know that one day they're going to do things that bring joy again, and they'll have happy tears and sad tears, and both tears are fully acceptable.
Totally. 100%. Oh, I love it. What a good way to start off our morning, right? Talking about our feelings.
I love it. I would start every week this way, and I would end every week this way if I could.
That's awesome.
Well, Grace, this has been a fantastic conversation. It's been an honor to be an audience member of your story. So thank you for sharing it and being so vulnerable, and agreeing to do this.
I will say it's interesting because we're depending on when this episode comes out, we're literally hitting 1 year of when she passed. So it's for me, I'm taking this as kind of a nice therapy moment for me, just talking with you. But at the same time, it's laughing about the fun moments. I was looking at her text messages yesterday, and the last text she sent me was about Beyonce's new album, and I was like, that's exactly right. Like that's us. And so it made me kind of laugh, and it's just, there are joys of all of this, and hopefully people take that from this too.
Yeah, there's a lot of joy to be had. So if anybody is interested in getting in touch with you, if
Yes.
maybe they're ready to unpack some things, or maybe they just want to say, I support you too, and I'm in your corner,
Totally.
what's the best way that somebody can reach you?
Yeah, I would say reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm in there, especially with now that I'm a PR girly, I'm in there all day long. So just out to me on my LinkedIn. I will definitely love to chat with you about any of these situations you're going through, or even if it's, different ways maybe you can help with mental health in your company. I'd love to hear those as well. But yeah, even if it's just talk about freight tech or whatever, and you just want to chat, again, I love meeting new people in this industry. So reach out to me on LinkedIn and let's talk.
That sounds good. So thank you, Grace. Thank you, 3PL Systems, for making this episode happen. This has been fantastic. And to everybody else, we will see you next time.